Hi, in this video I want to show you how you can turn a simple Grasshopper script into a pretty advanced web application. To do this you will need Rhino, you will need Grasshopper, you will need a Grasshopper script, and you will need ShapeDiver. The application we will create looks like this here. So this is for, say, some street furniture that we want to be able to dynamically work with. And we don't just want to work with sliders, we want to be able to actively engage with this geometry. So let me just quickly show you some of the functionalities that we have in this application here. So we can say that it's an open bench. And then we also have the possibility to actively draw the path that this bench is following. So let's say we want this shape here instead. Or maybe we want to draw our own points. So we click here. Say draw point. Maybe we do a nice little spiral here. Now, something else you can see here is that the bench is divided into these segments here. They are a little bit darker, and we want to control those to give the bench a bit of an interesting profile. So let's increase the number here. Let's increase it to 5. And now let's go and change each individual part. So we go into Edit, and we can then select the bench. So we select, let's say, this one here. And here we have some parameters we can work with. So let's say we want to make it a bit longer. And we may want to give it a slight rotation. And we want to make it a lot higher and maybe a bit narrower. And then we can see if this is a design that we like. Maybe we give it an even stronger angle. And you can see this way here, we can really start to create some interesting designs. And we have this nice way of actively working with the part of the design that we're interested in. So this one over here, we can also change. We change the angle of that one as well. And let's have a look at this. Maybe we like this, maybe we don't, but that doesn't matter. What matters here is how we can build a web application like this. The last thing I quickly want to show you here, the last functionality, is that we can change the visual settings of this. So we can also go in and say we want it to be a bit of a stronger color, maybe. Or we can do the same thing for the transitions. And if you have your phone nearby, you can also click here, View on AR, and you'll get a QR code up here so you can actually watch it in augmented reality. And all of this here runs in your browser. So like this here, so everyone you want can access it and work with it. So let's see how we can build a web application like this. First, we'll look at the Grasshopper script, and then we will slowly build different layers of complexity on top of this until we have the web application that I just showed you. So let us start with a Grasshopper script where we have absolutely no ShapeDiver or no nothing in. It's just a simple standard Grasshopper script that can create this bench for us here. So we have the inputs over here on the left. These are the inputs to the script. Then we send all the input into the script. The script does all the work. And then here at the end, we have the bench sections, the transition sections, and we have some humans that we've added to. And all of that we send back to a visualization here. So that's actually all we care about for now. And then you can see here, we can start changing things. So we can increase the length of this segment over here. We can play with the rotations a little bit of the different sections. And then you get this kind of like very funky looking street furniture. So I think the first thing we should do would be to try and upload this one here to ShapeDiver and see what kind of web application we can get out of this. So now we are on ShapeDiver's webpage. I go to upload. I have now selected a file and I'm ready to upload it. And we're happy because the model goes straight through, so we can open it and have a look at it. So here you see the model. You can also see that we have a lot of different tabs here that we don't need because we have a lot of sliders inside the script that are not necessary. So essentially what we want to do if we really wanted to make this proper would be to only show our input data here and give it proper names. But we're not going to do that for this model here because this is not the one we are interested in. Let's anyway save it. When you have saved your file, you can get a link that you can share with someone and they can then go in and play with your model. Now we still have access to everything here. But as you can see, the sliders we're interested in are in here. And we can play with the model exactly like we did in Rhino. But we can make this a lot nicer if we use the app builder in ShapeDiver. So let's go back into Grasshopper and start adding some extra components. So here is the Grasshopper script that we used before. And I've added a few things in here now to enable us to make this web application. The first thing I want to add is what is it we want to show in the end in our application. And here we have these 3 visualizations down here. Let me just show it over here. We have the bench sections, which are these here. We have the transitions, which are these here. And we have the humans, which are the humans. But we want to use the components that ShapeDiver has provided to provide this display. So I'll just turn these here off. And instead, we use this one here, display GITF2 display. And I just place them over here at the end. So we can turn those on and see how they look. Now, one thing that's quite important in here is that you right click and you give them a name. So this one is the display for benches. This one is the display for transitions, and this one down here is the display for humans. And we're going to get back to later why this is important. But I can already say now, it is because we have to reference those displays later on. So now we have the displays. I know that we want to build an app. We want to build a proper web app. And for that, we can use the app builder. So we can go up here to the app builder. And I like to start from the end. And the end of the app builder is to put everything into the app. So that's this component here. And I've already prepared a little bit over here, a few components. You can see it's very limited how much you need. But you have the app here. And into this one, we put something. And I would like to put in a container, like a container where we can put in all our controls. So I use this container here. And I want it to be on the left side of the screen. You can also have it to the right, top, bottom, whatever you want. So now we have our control panel that will be on the left side of the screen. But I want to be able to switch between different tabs in that control panel. So I have one for visualization. I have one where I can edit each individual bench. And I have one with the global settings. So for that, I can use the tab component here. And I can simply just put the T into the T. So now we've added tabs to our container that we've added to our app. We give our tabs some names. And now we're ready to add some controls or some widgets to our tabs. So you can see here we create a branch for each tab. The second branch here is empty for now. We're going to work on that in the next part of this. But we're adding some controls to the general tab and we're adding some controls to the visualization tab. And if you go up to the app builder here, you can see the different kinds of widgets that you can add. And for now, we're just going to add some parameter widgets. And the way we define those are extremely simple. Let's look at the visualizations first. Here we add benches, transitions, and humans. And these are direct references to the named swatch or color components that we use as inputs down in the visualization. We also say that we want to add 4 controls. We want to add draw points, number of benches, close bench, and corner radius. I want to look at these 3 here first, and then I'm going to get back to this draw points here. So this is again just referencing by name to something on our canvas. So in this case here, we have number of benches, we have close bench, and corner radius. If we just pull this one up here, you can see that these are the ones that it's referring to. Now the points input, this one here, draw points is called. I'm going to talk about that one now. So if you go to the Inputs tab here, you have the possibility to get different types of input. And these bottom ones here are some that allows you to interact directly with geometry inside your model. And this points input, it allows you to pick points, and you can delete existing points, add new ones, or you can move the points that are already in your model. And we can use that to select a path for our bench. So now you can see it's extremely little that we have changed here, but let's see if we can get it to work. So now I've saved the file and I'm ready to upload it. We click the upload button. We open the model. And let's just save it and jump straight into the app and see what it looks like. So we have now saved the model and we can press Open App. And this is what our app builder now looks like. So we can change the number here. We can start drawing some points, change these here to give it the shape that we want. We can't yet do any editing because we haven't added anything to that tab, but we have our visualization in here where we can change the color of all these things here as well. So this is a pretty simple app build up. We essentially just added very few components to our Grasshopper script, and we now have a pretty nice web application. But let's try to make it a little bit more advanced because we want to be able to select parts of this script here. And we don't care if we have 2 of these sections, or if we have 10, or if we have 1. We want it to work dynamically no matter what. And this is where things get a little bit more complicated. And that's what we'll be looking at in the next step. So now we are ready to add our final touch to this model here. We are back in Grasshopper and Rhino. We have our model over here, and we have the final Grasshopper script here. So what we want to add now is this ability to click on a bench and then get the parameters up for that specific bench, change them, then select another bench, change those parameters. And we want to be able to do it no matter how many or how few benches we're working with. The first thing we want to do here is to somehow be able to differentiate between these different benches. So let me show you how we can do that. So now we are back in the Grasshopper file. And this here is the Grasshopper file that has everything in it that we need to be able to create the full web application. To add this cool functionality where you can click an object and then change its parameters, we need to be able to refer to these objects. So we need to give them a name that we can refer to. So you know that now you have selected bench 1, then we want to have the attributes belonging to bench 1. So we need to give it a name, and that's the first thing we're going to do. So we go down to where we did the visualization, and here we have our benches and transitions coming in. Then we go over here and we create a string for each bench. So bench 0, bench 1, bench 2. Do the same for the transitions. And then we create an attribute. Go up to the attributes tab up here, say construct attributes, and then you get this component here. Then we get a ShapeDiver attribute that we're going to attach to the geometries. So you see we have the geometries here, close brep. Here we get the attributes, and then we simply attach those attributes to the geometry. So here we have a close brep with the attribute name equal bench 2. Now we also want to add a material to this object. So we go over here and we create an attribute called material. We attach it to the object, and now you get a close brep with name bench 0 and material is equal to whatever this material is. So now we can refer to those geometries. The component we are interested in now is this one here, inputs selection input, and it says change my name. You can give it a name, select a bench, for example, could be the name. So I've added this component down here, and what it returns is the name of the object you're selecting. So we had our names, bench 2, bench 1, bench 0, and that's essentially just the name you get here when you select it. Something else you will notice is that you're going to right-click this, and you can give it a name filter, and we have given it the filter benches. And if we go back down here, that means we can only select something from this preview here. So all the transitions and all the humans is not something that we can choose. So we can only select from this preview here. That's the filter. So what are the parameters that we want to be able to change for each bench? We have the length, we have the X and Y dimensions, and we have the angle. So we can put them here. Length, angle, dimension X, dimension Y. These are our dynamic parameters. I just want to show you what this group up here does. So let me just make a copy of this. So let's say that we had selected bench 2, and that would be the output that comes out of this one here. So we put our dynamic parameters in here, and what we do over here is essentially just a bit of string management. So what we get out over here is length 2, angle 2, dimension X2, dimension Y2. If we had bench 1, what we would get out would be with 1s instead. So now each bench has its own parameter. Bench 1 has length 1, angle 1, dimension X1, and so on. Bench 40 has length 40, angle 40, and so on. So we need to tell the web application to now show just these 4 variables. And if we select another bench, bench 2, it should show the length 2, angle 2, and so on. And for that, we can go up to the app builder and we can say parameter reference. So we take our output here, we put it into the parameter reference, and then we essentially just add that to the second tab of our web application. So now we're capable of saying that the web app should show some parameter called length 1 or angle 2, but we haven't actually created these parameters yet. We have some up here, but these are not dynamic and they're definitely not named properly. So it's not these that we want to refer to. The ones we want to refer to doesn't exist yet, but the app has this P input, and I think this is still a bit work in progress, so it may change slightly how it works. But the idea is that you can provide a list of dynamic variables that you can work with. So in this case, we want to add some dynamic sliders. So we have 4 sliders for every bench. So if we have 4 benches, we'll have 16 sliders. If we have 1 bench, we'll have 4 sliders. And you can see now we have a number of benches up here. The default value is 4. And you can go down here and see that now we should hopefully have 16 outputs. So we're defining 16 sliders and we just define them in this JSON format. I'll get back to how we're creating it, but essentially a slider just gets a name, it gets an ID, and this is the one that we were referring to here with this dynamic parameter. It gets a name, gets a type, min and max value, a default value, and the actual value that it has. And this value can of course change if you use the slider. So now we're adding these parameters to the model. So we now have a variable number of sliders in our model. So I don't want to go super much into details with how I create the JSON, but I'll give you a quick overview of it. So I have the default number of benches to be 4. So I also want to create 4 default values for these sliders here. So I know I need a type, decimal places, min and max value, and a default value. And I put all of these up to JSON here. And JSON simply allows you to take some variables, give them a key, and then it creates a JSON file for you. You can have a look at this in the file yourself. I also know that ShapeDiver has a construct JSON, but I'm just used to using JSON, and I find JSON really, really nice to work with. So that's why I'm using that one here. But the summary of this is that all we're doing here is to create the sliders that go into the web application. Now we need to read the slider values. So let's go back up here. Here we have this parameter that I create called ID. And in here, you can find all the names of all the parameters. So all the IDs of these sliders that we've just created. And I want to read all of these values and pass on to my script. I may only be changing number 0, but I still want to read 1, 2, and 3 to be able to create my geometry. So I take this ID here. And now this is where things may not be super intuitive. And I know some of this here is still a work in progress. So again, it may change how it works, but I'll show you how I at least got it to work. So you can use this direct text input here and then set its name here to app builder. And then it will give you a JSON out with all the values of your sliders. It will give you a JSON. We have the IDs up here that we're interested in. So we look for those values in the JSON. We will get them all out here. Now they're all null because we have nothing. But it will then find these values in the JSON that contains all the values for the parameters in the model. And then if we don't get anything, we populate it with the default values. Then we just flip the matrix, and then we do two things. One is that we put the value up here to our slider definition. So we tell it what value it now has. And we send the values into the script as well. So we have the length, angle, dimension X, dimension Y. We take that, send it into the script. I just set this to debug equals no. And then we're ready to send the values into the script. So let's try to upload this file and see if we have some luck. So we're now ready to upload the file. Now we have uploaded it, and we can now open the model. One thing to keep in mind here is that if you want to use augmented reality, you just quickly want to go in and you want to set the units to the correct unit here. Otherwise, you're going to have a 6 kilometer long bench, which is a bit overkill maybe. But we can save this here now. Okay. And we can open up the app. So now we should be able to change this here to any number we like. We can go in here and say we select a bench. See, now we have this filter in, so it doesn't do anything when we hover over here, but it does do something when we hover over these two. Now we get these dynamic parameters that we discussed before. We're going to increase this one here. And now we can rotate it ever so slightly. And make it a little bit different in dimension. So I hope this gives you a decent idea of what is possible with the app builder in ShapeDiver. I think it has improved quite a lot from the previous way of doing it, where you could only control things with sliders and you didn't have these dynamic options. So something that I want to play a bit more with is the gumball input, the draw points input. I think those are really powerful. And then this ability to add dynamic parameters is also super interesting, in my opinion. So now you have an app, you can connect it to your web page, to a web shop, whatever you want. And all the hard things are essentially taken care of here. So I hope you enjoyed this video here. And if you have any comments, just leave one in the comment field below. Thanks a lot.